Let me move on and bring in my next guest, Patrick Lukusa Kadima, who is an academic and researcher on international law, multilateralism, social justice, and public policy, and joining us via video link. But we also have Fred Arendse, who is president of the Junior Mining Council. Good afternoon to the both of you. Let me just start by asking you about the G20 as a forum versus a fully fledged international organization, just how that sits side by side at international law. Patrick, let me pose that question to you.
So in essence, and to put it in layman's term, if you have an organization such as the United Nations, or you have an organization such as the World Health Organization, and an organization such as African Union, or for that matter, SADC, the Southern African Development Community, those blocks or those summits, when they're held, are based on a treaty, right? On a treaty signed between member states. But the G20 is not does not base itself through a treaty. What it does, it is it is a regional bloc that has been established, and and decisions there are not binding, if I may put it that way.
So if they are not binding, just say a bit more about that theme then, because we've seen the G20 taking center stage in responding to a number of international crises in the recent past. How does it respond? What makes it suitable at certain times in geopolitics, where, for instance, right now, there seems to be almost like gridlock at many of these multilateral institutions? If I stick with you for a moment, Patrick.
Yeah, so you will need to understand first the historical context of when it was created. It was due to the Asian financial crisis at that time, and so on and so forth. It grew to have it grew to have it was a forum that grew to now discuss a lot of issues such as climate change, debt sustainability, and so on and so forth. But what makes it effective, if I may say, is the fact that it has a lot of influential countries which are economically heavyweights in the world, countries that are political heavyweights in the world, and therefore that gives it the power that it needs to move forward, right? So there will be disagreements. There have been disagreements in the past, but there have also been consensus on certain issues on how the global community should move forward. So that's what gives that G20 the impetus or the power to move forward. Unlike when you have an international organization that is based on a treaty, established via a treaty, and when decisions are made, it is binding to those member states.
All right, let me bring in Fred Arendse. Fred, your take on this G20 should be quite interesting, given that you come at it from the perspective of the mining sector and its role in the global economy, but also in economic growth and industrialization. And that has certainly featured in a major way during South Africa's presidency of the G20. What will you be looking for as the work of the Shepherd track concludes and the work of the leaders begins in earnest?
Thank you very, very much. Yes, but I think I first need to mention, and we should actually congratulate ourselves. The G20 is the very first on the African continent, and it's hosted by our country, South Africa. So I think we should really, really be proud that we were able to gather very influential, countries in our land. And but yes, it gives us all an opportunity, to engage with big business abroad, showcasing what we have, in particular in the mining sector. We all know that we've been blessed in terms of our mineral wealth, and not just in South Africa, but also on the African continent. But I need to mention that, having said that, we have significant challenges extracting, fairly those minerals, and so at least it would then be able to convert that into wealth that we all need, to build our continent and our country. Now, some of the challenges that emerged, in the various conversations this week, some of which was, towards the build-up for this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I sincerely hope that, all the frameworks that has been formulated this week will actually translate into action. What we need, you know, in South Africa, what we need on the continent is it is credible action so that we can see, you know, the value of the effort. I think we're beyond, you know, engaging and talking and just creating, you know, frameworks. What we need is credible action.
Yeah.
And I sincerely hope, as a big takeaway, after this, you know, historic week and weekend, that we will see, you know, that commitments that was made between us and various countries come to fruition. And we're very excited in the mining sector, you know, to see that, you know, the whole question about beneficiation. I mean, it's actually not a foreign concept. It's not. It has actually been introduced by the former minister before she became the deputy president, Pumzile. She actually, you know, raised this as a strategy for our country and for the mining sector, beneficiation. But the disappointment is we haven't made much progress, you know, as we speak.
So, Fred, let me stick with you for a moment. What are you looking for by way of signaling that progress that says we're moving beyond talking about beneficiation, but also as we center critical and rare earth minerals? What needs to come out of G20 2025, Johannesburg, South Africa, that will signal that we're moving beyond talking and there's something tangible that these 19 states and 2 country blocks can take back in their respective spheres of influence, such that it begins to take shape, such that we start seeing that leveraging of critical and rare earth minerals for development, for example?
Absolutely. What will really excite me and most of us in the sector, if we can see that there's an environment for investors to want to invest in South Africa, there's an environment of certainty in terms of when you invest in South Africa, you have, you know, the comfort and the certainty that you would be able to, you know, to extract your return of investment. Unfortunately, we have a lot of uncertainty in the mining sector. And I really hope that, you know, after this weekend, that, you know, the organs of these industry, like the Department of Mineral and Energy, you know, under the stewardship of our Minister Gwede Mantashe, will really prove to us domestically that we have a stable mining environment, we have a stable legislation, and we have an enabling, you know, investor-friendly environment that will attract, you know, foreign investment. Yeah. If I can just mention, we have a major challenge in terms of exploration spend. Many years ago, our part of the global spend was over 6%. Now it is 0.92%. We cannot have that if we want to extract minerals and build new mines. So we have to create an environment for investors to come in and to stay in and to, you know, to experience, you know, the development and economic, you know, extraction that we present.
Last word to you, Patrick. Let's come back to what comes out of Johannesburg. As things stand through the reporting of Asof Mkwena, a great deal of progress being made with regard to, you know, a draft leaders' declaration, the work of the Sherpas, having taken them almost to that point where there is something on the table that could potentially be agreed to and ratified by the leaders. How important would that be, that outcome be? And also, what's the give and take that is involved at fora such as these, where if you are talking about, you know, energy transition, sustainability, yet in the room you have countries that depend on, you know, the very minerals that we've been talking about, carbons, you know, emitters and the likes. So what's the give and take, and how important would it be to have a declaration versus a mere chairperson's statement?
Thank you. You know, for that, I'm crossing my fingers. I hope a leader's declaration can come out of this summit. I don't, for one, doubt South Africa's diplomatic prowess. You know, it has shown over the few months that the country has been ready to host these leaders. It has engaged leaders despite, you know, despite hiccups from Washington. You know, so I don't doubt the country's diplomatic prowess to engage these leaders so that, you know, a leader's declaration can come out, right? It involves negotiations, very painful ones at times, you know, because negotiations, you can't have it all. Yeah. So some countries will have to, you know, concede in certain areas. And if a leaders' declaration can come out of this, this will be a very huge victory for South Africa, given the geopolitical climate that we are living in. We have seen from BRICS sometimes it's very difficult to have a leaders' declaration coming out from BRICS itself. So, but with this G20, if they can get it out, it will be a very, very huge victory and one to celebrate. Now, with the issues of, energy, just energy transition and so on and so forth, that's one of the thorny issues that's going to be on the table. We have countries that are relying on fossil fuel for energy. In Africa, we have energy poverty, and not only in Africa, by the way, but also in other continents. But since this is being hosted here, it's also it's important that we speak about the energy poverty that Africa, experiences. So if we are going to have these discussions on energy, it's important African fossil fuels, jobs are on the line. We also we are home to 30% of critical minerals that is essential, but we want these countries to understand that we want to here to create jobs for our people. It's unfair that we take these minerals continuously to Europe for processing. Our people are in need of jobs, and it cannot be that they are mined here, they are mined in South Africa, they're mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo, they're put onto a ship via the Lobito corridor and off to America. That should not be allowed. Jobs should be created for our people. Sustainable development should happen for our people. So these minerals should benefit the communities that we are mining in. And the third thing that needs to be discussed, and I'm sure it's going to be there, is the issue of conflict. We find in areas in Africa where these where these minerals are being mined, that there is always conflict, right? And there are certain parties from these European countries that, whether it's non-state actors or state actors, that influence conflicts in these countries to ensure that these minerals are diverted through illegal ways. That should stop. And South Africa has been one of the countries that has been loud about having clean minerals, minerals that do not have blood on their hands. So these are the discussions that need to take place. But we'll have to see what happens, on Sunday.
All right. Patrick, thank you for that. That's Patrick Lukusa Kadima, who is an academic and researcher on international law, multilateralism, social justice, and public policy. And we were also joined by Fred Arendse, who is the president of the Junior Mining Council.